character isn't been named after. Hippo. Mr. Hippo. Phantom Puppet. Mr. Hippo Phantom Puppet. Jackawani. That's a
You the last one? What the heck?
Black Friday starts now at Dick's Sporting Goods. Take 25% off Nike, Sorel, and the entire selection of Hydro Flask. Plus, take up to 50% off select table tennis tables.
Ooh, my mom is probably my mom is either sleeping, getting ready, or buying something.
Why?
It's Black Friday. It's true though. $15. Actually, you probably have.
Watch this.
Hmm.
Or type of environment, you know, and so then, and in addition to that, it was just a small town, you know, my parents were looking for good opportunities for myself, for my sisters, and so my dad got a head coaching job offer in New Mexico at a school called Rio Rancho, which had one of, like, honestly, one of the top programs in the country. There was tons of kids there that were just super, super high level, and, you know, my mom was like, this is definitely a little better weather, and the environment's a little nicer and stuff, so made the move there, and yeah, lived there for a few years, and that's really where I started. I was serious about wrestling before that, but that's where I started almost doubling down on it even more.
But you still weren't training full time?
No, so basically my schedule would be, you know, the fall months, August, like maybe end of July, August through October football, but and it depended. Like I would probably get 1 or 2 wrestling training sessions a week, and then maybe like I would do one tournament or something like that, like during football season. But it was mainly just football. I'd have those 3-4 months out of the year to just focus on football, and then the summer I would do other sports, track or baseball. But the other sports weren't as serious. It would be like, you know, I would just basically still be doing a full wrestling schedule through those sports.
Oh, so you were training year round?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was training. I would say this. I was training. If you look at it, cumulative, it was probably 10 months out of the year.
Okay.
I just did everything. I just loved it.
So other than football season, you're wrestling?
Yeah.
And you made varsity your 8th grade when you were in 8th grade?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Interesting
What was your
story.
weight?
I weighed 100 pounds, so I was 103 at the time. Yeah. So basically, what was gonna happen was I had a really good football team that year, and I was also a little small. So I mean, not like super small, but like somewhat small. So between 7th and 8th grade, we were all gonna get held back, and it was gonna be like create this super team for sports, and it was gonna be insane. And
all the parents got together.
yeah.
We're just like, yo, we're
doing this, yeah. And it was like, okay, let's do it. And so, yeah, and but we were all on board, all the kids, because those were all like my best friends. So I was like, yo, let's do this. And then we'll all be just basically do this year over. And so we go to do it, and they're like, okay, everybody, all these other kids can do it, but you can't do it. And I was like, and they're like, your state test scores are too high. We can't allow you to get held back. And I'm like, what the frick? Like, this doesn't make any sense. They're like, you scored at this grade level, whatever, like there's no way we're just not gonna allow it. And they like put their foot down.
Nobody taught you how to bomb the test yet.
Yeah, I know, I should have, but I was just like, what are we gonna do? And my dad was just super pissed because they let everybody go besides me, and so my dad's like, all right, you're gonna get homeschooled this year. And so in 8th grade, I was homeschooled, and I just wrestled. And I played on my football team too, but
Did you still repeat the year then as a homeschooler?
no, so I didn't repeat the year.
Got it.
So basically, we kind of just decided that since since I had to move up a grade to stay with my football team, I basically, because it wasn't a school team, it was a club team.
Got it.
I like couldn't do 8th grade because the years in school were like kind of weird, where like middle school is 6th, 7th, and then it was like the schedule didn't work out. So we're gonna homeschool you. We're gonna have you do football, and then you're allowed to do, as a homeschool athlete, the high school technically has to allow, like your local has to allow you to do one sport. And so obviously I'm gonna do wrestling, and in New Mexico you can compete on varsity as an 8th grader because of just the way that state works. Like there's some states that just allow that. And so that year was really interesting because my parents were both working full time, they're teachers and coaching and stuff, and I was just at home. Like I basically took a redshirt year, and like it worked out.
And you're 13.
I was like 13, so I would wake up, I would work out, I would do like a P90X workout. I don't know if y'all even know this, but yeah, I would do a P90X workout, and then my parents, the first couple weeks, they're like, all right.
People like Googling P90X right now, I'm gonna sign up for that.
Yeah. And so they were like, all right, here's all your school stuff. It's on the computer. You know, you got history, you got math, you got whatever, all these classes. And I was like, okay. So I did them for a week. And then my parents like weren't really checking. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm done. So I didn't do school. I just basically took that whole year and I worked out and wrestled and played football at the beginning. But it was mostly just working out and wrestling.
And the wrestling was just with the high school?
Yeah, so what I would do was, and what I had been doing up to, from 5th grade on is, and I would do the high school practice, which would be a little earlier, so it'd be like right after school, 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then I would go straight to club practice, 6:30 to whatever, 8. And so I would do.
That's like 4.5 hours of wrestling.
Yeah, most days that's what I was doing. I would do 2. Yeah. And then I would lift.
I like the fact that earlier you said you were like a full-time wrestler. And here you are, just doing nothing but wrestling.
I just loved it.
I homeschooled my son for a few years, and he sounded like he had a very similar schedule. It was all serving and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
Not much.
it was great for me. I mean, it worked out because I was somebody that I didn't really. It was just what I needed at the time, And
Were your sisters? No, you're just home alone.
So I had one sister. She's a year younger than me. That she was homeschooled as well. So it was me and her, and we would just hang out.
But you're 13 years old, home by yourself, just doing whatever.
Yeah.
What did you eat, dude?
Dude, the worst. I would well, it wasn't all bad. It was like 50% the worst, but I would make brownies like every day. I learned how to make brownies with the old like Betty Crocker box or whatever, and I would just like make a tray of brownies and eat them every day. I don't even think my parents knew.
I don't even think my parents knew.
Like the one
Dang.
I watched 100 times. I watched Joe Dirt. And I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
How'd you do your varsity or your freshman year, or your 8th grade year? How'd you do?
I did okay. So our team was very good. So we would travel all over. We'd go to, we'd go to Colorado. We'd go to Kansas. We'd go to California. We'd wrestle in, all kinds of big tournaments. And I don't remember how many times I lost. Probably 4 or 5 times. And I ended up taking second in the state, which crushed me. It was the worst. Like I never lost at a state tournament. So from the time I was 6, when I did my first state tournament in wrestling, youth wrestling, freestyle, Greco, folk style, so three state tournaments a year, I never lost at a state tournament until the 8th grade, my first year of varsity, make the finals. And I'm actually wrestling a kid that was an old teammate of mine who transferred to a different school and who I beat a couple times. He beat me maybe once, and he got me, and it was devastating. It was hard. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was like
He was the same age as you?
no, he was like 3 or 4 years older.
Yeah, that's the thing people gotta understand is, in high school when you're wrestling by weight, but you know different people have different
So
weights in life, and so you were probably you were probably always wrestling guys that were 17 or 18 years old.
Yeah.
You were 13.
So what my dad would do, this is funny, but when I turned, I think it started when I turned 9. So when I went up till 9, I was probably wrestling like at 6 and 7 and 8, probably 40, 50 matches a year. At 9, it was like, all right, this for real. I was wrestling like over 100 matches a year. What I would do is I would wrestle the 9, 10s, I would wrestle 11, 12. So I would wrestle 10 and under, I would wrestle 12 and under. And I would wrestle 20 matches in a weekend sometimes. It was like insane. And then by the time I graduated the 10 and under division, so when I turned 11, I would wrestle 11, 12. And the next division was 15 and under. So I was 11 and I would wrestle 15-year-olds. And that was the standard for me. And I wasn't just doing like local tournaments like this. I would go to like a big tournament with kids from 20 different states, and I would wrestle as an 11-year-old. I'd wrestle 11, 12, and I'd wrestle 13, 14, 15 as well. So I'd wrestle, like I said, 20 matches in a weekend and competing against everybody. My dad was just trying to get me matches.
Yeah. So I just have to send out some advisory information here because I did that too with my kids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good because I would put my kids when they were younger, lower belts and lower weights, and I'd make them wrestle up age, make them wrestle up belts, and make them wrestle up weights. And so they get their asses kicked sometimes.
Yeah.
And I would, in my mind, you know, my inner dialogue was like, I'm making really tough kids. And in their minds it was, I'm not good at this.
I suck.
You know, I suck, this isn't fun, I don't want to do this. And what you want your kids to do is have fun. That's what you want. And
Yeah.
winning is fun, losing is not fun. I think, I'm trying to remember where I got this from. Maybe it's Huberman, but I don't know who it is. 80%. Jordan Peterson. 80%. That's what you want. You want to win 80% of the time. So if you can get your kids to win 80% of the time, that's good. 20% of the time they lose, then they, I can do this, and they feel good about themselves. You don't want to do 20% win and 80% lose, because then they don't want to practice and want to get better. How often do you win when you're 11 years old going against 15-year-olds?
Yeah, so I'll disagree with him a little bit because if I would have lost 2 matches every 10 matches I wrestled, I would have been furious. I would have been so mad. So I probably won 95% of my matches. You know, I was probably, if I wrestled 100 matches in a year, I would lose 4 or 5. But those
kids that were 4 years old.
Yeah, and there would be kids that were my age that would beat me too. You know, like I would go to, there was this big tournament, Tulsa Nationals. Like Tulsa Nationals was the tournament. You get kids from everywhere, and I never won it as a kid. I would always be, you know, second, third, like right in there. I never did. I always placed high, but I never won. Like one year, I actually took 6th, and if you look at it, there's this crazy picture online where, if you look at the 6 guys, there's like 10 national titles, 17 All-American honors, like multiple world champions. It's like crazy. Like in this Tulsa Nationals, you know, you look, I'm trying to remember the guys. It was Dean Heil, who's multiple-time national champion, Joey McKenna, Ohio State wrestler, Zach Hall, Isaiah Martinez, Anthony Valencia. There was maybe like one other guy, and me. I was the 6th out of all of those guys. But yeah, so I was losing at a pace that for me was good. It was like every loss would really hit me hard, but I would be motivated from it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, you know, if you're a parent and your kid is obviously doing well, like for instance, let's say you hadn't wrestled as much and you got into it when you were in 8th grade, and your dad wouldn't throw you to the Tulsa tournament and let you get annihilated, because he would have been like, oh no, we're gonna go over and beat up some of these kids in this local tournament.
Yes.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's interesting, this whole personality that you have, that you sat here for like 15 minutes and said that you didn't really wrestle that much as a kid, and it turned out you were competing 100 matches a year. I don't know, this is not normal.
Well, I'll say this: I wasn't exclusively wrestling. I was doing it a lot, obviously. Like as we can tell, you know, I was 7, 8 years old wrestling. I mean, by the time I was 10, I had probably 500 matches. You know, like crazy. But it was, to me, a lot of other things going on as well. I don't know. The big question to me is I don't know how my parents managed it because they were both working. My dad was coaching. He was traveling with his team. Like how he missed in my whole youth, all the way up until I got to college, one tournament of mine, and I did terrible. I was like 12, and I was like got wrecked. But yeah, I mean, my whole youth, I'm like, the math doesn't really check out there because he has a full-time job and he's also coaching a team. So how does this work? But I'm just like, he did it. So
Was he your coach always in high school?
yeah. So basically, what happened was,
Well, that helps, obviously.
yeah. So up until the 8th grade, we lived in New Mexico. He was always the head coach of the high school. He would have obviously assistants and then run the youth program as well. So he was with me, coaching me every day. And then when after the 8th grade, from 8th to 9th grade, my sisters were getting a little older. We started to realize New Mexico, it had a lot of good things, but the culture wasn't great. A lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, just kind of bad stuff. We're near Albuquerque. It was a rougher area. That's also kind of where I started fighting, where I started getting interested in fighting. It's a big fight culture in that area. But they just didn't really it wasn't really me, it was more so my sisters kind of coming up in that type of environment. So we were looking for places to go that had great wrestling and were more of a family type of environment. And so we ended up moving to Texas. And my dad also didn't want to, he was spending so much time coaching and wrestling. He wanted to spend some more time with my sisters. And he decided to kind of take a back seat and just be a dad, maybe do like some assistant coaching work. And once we got to Texas, he basically just coached me, and that was it. And he wasn't like official. He was a teacher, but he didn't coach like on the high school team officially until the coach was like, "Please, like help us." And then
Now you said in New Mexico you started getting, and I quote, interested in fighting. Does that mean you were getting in scraps?
oh yeah,
Or no?
oh yeah. So I always kind of just being like a boy and wrestling and playing football. It's like that's a normal thing, right? Like scrapping. But in New Mexico, it really got turned up to like 100 because we're right near Jackson's. That was right when all these dudes were coming out of there that were absolute killers. Rashad Evans, Keith Jardine, Cowboy Storm, like so many guys. And so that was just such a normal thing. So what we do at these tournaments, first off, like my friends and I would just fight and be like, "Oh, let's just fight for fun," And then what we started doing was we'd go to wrestling tournament, local tournament at a high school or whatever, and we'd get 15, 20 kids, right? We'd go back hallway where nobody was. The tournament's in the gym. We'd go out the gym through the cafeteria or whatever and find a back hallway where no parents were, nobody was. And we just get in a circle and we just fight. So you wrestle your match, boom, you go out there, you fight. You go wrestle, you go fight. So I would get like 10 wrestling matches and I would like fight 10 kids at the same day. And that was just what I started doing. It was just fun. I just loved it. But it was a little crazy, but that's just kind of where I first got introduced to fighting and saw it as something that I was like, I like this.
Yeah, right on. Now, moving to Texas, wrestling's not huge in Texas. And did your dad, he must have looked at like Pennsylvania, Iowa, like he must have California. What made him settle on Texas?
Yeah, we looked at Iowa City, we looked at Blair Academy, New Jersey, we looked at Poway. All could have been out there, which would have been crazy. But yeah, all these schools very good. So I remember my mom, my dad, and I were driving out to Texas to kind of just scope the area, take the job interviews and stuff. And so I get there, and the people were just so nice right away, just awesome people. The high school was massive. The football team was like the #1 team in the country. They had all these crazy plans. They had all this strength conditioning stuff in place with the high school, and everything was like, it seemed like a college. It was insane. And so my parents saw that they had a high school science teacher, which that's what my dad does, and they had a middle school PE teacher, which is what my mom does. Like those jobs were available, and it was like, okay, that's a little weird that these two jobs are perfectly already available. So they interview, they get the jobs on the spot, and then they're like, okay, like give us like a day to think about it. And we're driving back, and we just found out about basically the high school I went to was Allen High School. We found out about this place 5 days earlier, maybe less. And then, got the jobs and to drive back, and my parents were just like, if this isn't God telling us where we need to be, like, I don't even know. So call back, accept the job, and then the next week I moved to Texas and lived that summer with one of my now best friends and his family, and just did their summer strength conditioning program and did like some summer football and stuff, and wrestled obviously. And then my parents and sisters moved out like the end of the summer, so it happened so fast. It was like, oh, we're in New Mexico, we're kind of interested in other places, and then a week later I was in Texas. It was like insane.
And so you played football too?
Yeah, I played football for 2 years there, and the high school team's insane. So I think my freshman and sophomore year, there were maybe state quarterfinals, state semis, but then my junior, senior year, and then the next like 2 or 3 years, state champion, #1 team in the country, 60 game unbeaten streak. Now, the quarterback when I was in school was Kyler Murray. He's the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. They have like, I don't even know, probably 10 guys that were on the team that play in the NFL now. Yeah, so the team was stacked. And I love playing and stuff, but I just, it's so different in Texas when you're playing football. It's not football season. It's, first off, we're going to do football season. It's 16 weeks. It's 12 regular season games or 10 regular season games and 6 playoff games. Like, it's a lot. You go till Christmas. And then as soon as you're done with that, it's, all right, we're powerlifting the next 3 months. Okay? We're done powerlifting. We got full pad spring ball season. So there's 12 weeks of full pad spring ball. Okay, summer 7-on-7. We're going to Arkansas. We're going to Oklahoma. We're playing 7-on-7. It's like, that's all year for them. So I did it for 2 years, and I was playing well, and like I probably would have been, I wouldn't have been the best player on the team, but I would have been a guy that contributed a lot on the team and stuff. And I was like, but I wasn't committed like these other kids. I was like, I'm not gonna not wrestle. Like I'm doing well in season, but I'm not gonna take all this. And I do spring ball, but I can't do everything else. So in my mind, I had to pick. I just got to an age where I was like, I gotta pick path.
How'd you do your freshman year in wrestling?
So my freshman year of wrestling, I did well. I had a couple losses. I had gotten a little bigger. So my 8th grade, I was about 100 pounds. My freshman year, I weighed about 120, 125, and I made the state finals again as a freshman, and had an insane match with this kid who was a senior. He was like 2-time defending state champion, and he ended up beating me. And so I got second again, and crushed me. I just remember like, that was probably up to that point in my life, definitely the hardest thing that I had. Which it seems like I'm very blessed. Like I didn't have a lot of like trauma outside of that, but that was the hardest thing I had to deal with because. Like it was like, all right, well I can't be a 5-time state champion, which was never really like a big thing on mine. I was like, but I'm gonna win every year when I'm actually in high school. And then boom, can't do it. And I'm like, oh, like I just ran straight out to the parking lot and just like was crushed for an hour. My dad came down and was like, hey, you gotta get your medal. Like you gotta go on the podium, like take a picture. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he was like, no, come on, you gotta. But yeah, it was rough.
How long did it take you to get through that?
So.
Did you like immediately Dan Gable just like start training even harder?
Yeah, kind of. It was right after that. I had like I don't really remember. I kind of like blank it out, to be honest. I know that summer I was wrestling at Fargo national tournaments, and I did okay and stuff. And but I was still like I just kind of just had so much going on between just being a kid and school and football and wrestling that it was just like right back on it, and I don't think get to process that a lot, but it was something that it motivated me because of how bad I hurt. So anytime I go into a training session, that's what I'll think about. I would just be like, dude, do you want to feel that again, or are you gonna whip out in this workout? Do you want to feel like that? Like that's what are you gonna do? Yeah.
My daughter, after she would wrestle, I couldn't talk to her for 20 minutes, whether she won or lost.
Yeah.
If she won and I went over and said, hey, good job, she'd be like,
yeah.
She was
emotional.
Just,
yeah.
And then if she lost, I'd go, that girl was tough.
Yeah.
My son, no emotions, win or lose, just looked like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like he looked like he just walked out of the grocery store.
Yeah.
He just had, an overtime match.
so
you
interesting.
know? Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, it was always really emotional for me, as a kid at least, because
Yeah.
I put so much into it. So I feel like there was at that point it was like, unless I like if I did what I wanted to do, I was like, "Ah, whatever, cool, I did it. But if I lost, it was like crushed me. Or if I won in a way that I wasn't, sufficient, then I was like,
Insufficient.
yeah, if it was like insufficient,
Insufficient winning.
yeah, like let's say like I was just mad because I'd be like, and at that point it would be like a lot of excuses like, well he was stall and he back like why don't this guy wrestle me? And I'd be like, and then I had to grow out of that though. So um, it was just very very emotional thing, which I just it was good and bad, right? Like if you let that control you, it's gonna end up really affecting you a lot, and it did, even through my college career. But once you have to learn a lot about yourself to be able to kind of move past that and use it efficiently versus letting it kind of dictate how you feel.
Are you cutting weight at this point?
No, not really. No. So I weighed 100 my freshman year. I wrestled 103. I cut a little weight here and there. Maybe my freshman year I weighed, or excuse me, my 8th grade I was 100. My freshman year I was 125. I'd maybe get up to 129, but I didn't cut really. I never cut. My senior year of high school, I wrestled 182 and I weighed 170 pounds. It was best for the team for me to just be up weight. So I was just up. Yeah, so I just was
Gave up
whatever.
12 pounds.
I've never been a big weight cutter, Even in college, I started off 174. Sophomore, junior year, I went up to 84. My senior year, I was 197, weighing 200 maybe. So I was weighing probably actually, I finished practice 194, 195. So
That's crazy.
that's just what I weighed. I just never been a weight cutter. I always focused on getting better at wrestling. Weight cutting is obviously an important part of the sport, and I would do it here and there. But I just wasn't interested in doing it. I was interested in getting better.
So you're state champ, 10th grade.
Yeah, so that was a big like right or wrong for me. So that was a big moment. I felt like, all right, we're kind of turning a corner here. Yeah.
The same thing left grade.
Yeah, it got a lot better. So that was the first year I just did wrestling exclusively, and I went from probably a 10 to maybe like an 8 to 12 kid in the country to like number one.
You still are gonna like roll into some dual meets or something where you've got some kid that's been wrestling for like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
That's just,
I got a good story about that. So, and especially in Texas, like
Yeah.
there's just not good wrestling in general. Like you get to the state tournament, the finals. There was one division at the time, so you're gonna wrestle somebody good. It's a huge state. There's gonna be somebody, but you're at the district tournament or whatever, and it's like this kid might be his first year, and I'm like the number one kid in the country. So I remember one year, so our rival in football was this school, South Lake Carroll. They're a Dallas school, very good at football, and we were wrestling them in the dual meet, and I was like, got all my boys. I'm like, yo, come out to this duel. It's gonna be sick. Like South Lake Carroll, let's do it. We're getting posters in the hallways and promoting it. We never got people at the duels. We'd get 80 people maybe because nobody cared about wrestling. Our team was state champ. We won state up to this year like 13 years in a row. Like my high school team. As a team, my junior year, we had a top 10 team in the country. We were very good, but nobody cared about wrestling. But this one duel, I was like, yo, like let's get it. And we had probably 600 people there. Like there was a lot. And I was like, this is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be sick. And I go out and I'm looking and I'm like, this kid is so bad. Like he can't even walk straight basically. And I'm like, what am I gonna do here? And I'm still young, so I don't really know. And I just low single off the whistle, pull his foot, and he just like boom falls back, and I just like jumped on him, and I pinned the kid in like 4 seconds. It was crazy. Like no exaggeration. I know 4 seconds might sound like a hyperbole. Like I'm not exaggerating. It was 4 seconds, and then I was like, bing, slapped the mat, and all my buddies were like, what? Like yeah, and I was like, damn, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have taken him down a few times and made it cool, but whatever. So yeah, you would get that once in a while, but just kids that don't never wrestled, right? Like they're just like, oh, I'll just try wrestling. Like, oh frick, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, you probably could have wrestled like the entire weight class all the way up.
Oh yeah.
Then, so you said you're the number one in the country right now. What What are they basing that off of? Are they basing that off of those big like Tulsa tournaments and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the Tulsa tournaments are really just youth, so up to 8th grade. But then once you get to high school, there's different sets of tournaments. So
Is that like Sun-Kissed Kids and those? There's that still youth?
that's still youth.
Okay.
Yeah, so in high school you have the big tournaments during the folk style season are the Ironman, the Super 32 is a big tournament. They just have like big high school tournaments, and then in the off season you have like Fargo tournaments. You have now you have like U17 and U20 world team trials, so those are very big. So it's basically just how you're doing against these other guys in the high school season and the off season. And my team was traveling everywhere, so we'd be in Ohio, Wisconsin, California, Oklahoma. Like we were wrestling all over the country. So
And you're winning these tournaments.
Yeah.
And that's why you're number one in the country.
yeah,
Coming out of Texas.
yeah, just it's a small sport, so you go to a tournament, like you're probably gonna if you go to a big tournament, like let's say you go to a big tournament in Missouri, and you get 50 teams there, you're gonna get probably 1 or 2 kids in your bracket that are ranked, right? Like just kind of the way it works. But yeah, so you're competing against these kids regularly. A lot of these kids I wrestled since I was little, right? Like wrestled them as an 8-year-old, and now I'm wrestling them in college. That's not an uncommon thing.
When does the recruiting process start, or when did it start for you?
I would say right about then. I was looking at schools, kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to go my junior year. We'd have college coaches, talk to me, especially ones that were close, like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and then schools that were maybe a little smaller that wanted to like get in early and try to. They just have to recruit differently than a big school, but it really started heavy. I would say, yeah, like right after my junior year. So I committed to Penn State in between my junior and senior year, but really like the end of my junior year, it was like heavy.
And like, do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so they'll send letters at first, maybe like request your transcripts, stuff like that. But a lot of times, you're traveling to tournaments and you just see guys there. Like I said again, it's a small world, so you just know coaches, right? Like when I was probably 5th, 6th grade, my dad brought Coach Kale in for a clinic at my high school. So at this time he was competing, so but it was so we knew him, right? Like we'd talk to him, and we see him at a tournament, like we would say hello, like. And so a lot of the coaches, they know me or they know my dad at least, so I can just text them. I don't know if that's legal, but like Penn State didn't do that, but they were.
Of course they didn't.
I'll say this. Penn State is so by the book, it's insane. Like every other school didn't really like they were just basically hitting me up, messaging me on Twitter, this and that. Penn State, they started late and they came in at the
I'm not gonna be able to do that.
yeah, I would say we knew him, like I said, I'd done clinic and it wasn't like
I'm not gonna be able to do that.
friends, never my dad was friends, but like we knew each other. And he's from Utah, so kind of like Utah, Wyoming, Colorado. A lot of those people know each other. It's just they're wrestling the same tournaments, stuff like that.
So, was this like an easy decision for you, or was there other schools that you thought about?
There were a lot of other schools. So up until that point, I took a bunch of unofficial visits. So I visited University of Virginia. I liked them a lot. I visited Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Ohio State. Basically, what happened was I wrestled at a tournament in Ohio. It was the U17 World Team Trials. And before the tournament, I went to Columbus and visited Ohio State and met with the coaches and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love this place. It's awesome. And they had been in contact with me and stuff. And they were like, all right, full scholarship, you're set. Let's do it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I want to visit Penn State as well. I planned to visit Penn State right after. So I wrestled the tournament, and then my dad and I drive to State College, visit Penn State. The vibe is so different, but I love it. They're like, I just remember the cities. Everything with Ohio State was, which I loved Ohio State, but it was so flashy. Like they took me to the football facilities. I remember the quarterback was like JT Barrett or somebody like that. He's throwing passes to receiver. They're like showing me like this is big time. This is cool. I'm like, this is cool. Wow, this is incredible. I get to Penn State. I go up in the coach's office. The office is like this big. It's like, what's up? Like,
Thank you.
you like wrestling? I'm like, I like wrestling. Like, do you guys like wrestling? Like, we're just like having a conversation. They're just trying to get to know me and stuff. And very, very casual, laid back. And then I walked around campus and stuff, and I was like, I like these guys. Let's figure this out. Every other school at that point had been 100%. Your school's paid for, you're good to go. And then Penn State, I was like, a few weeks later, my family was taking vacation to the Cayman Islands. We never took a family vacation. This is the first one we ever took together because I was always wrestling. And they were like, I'm like, I want to get this college thing figured out before I go on a 7-day vacation and don't have my phone and stuff. So I was just told the coach, I'm like, yo, make me an offer. Like, what are you guys gonna do? And they're like, okay, here's what we can do. We do 50% your first year because we have a big recruiting class. After that, we'll give you 100%. So you're gonna have to come out of pocket, out of state tuition, 50%, 25 grand, something like that. And I was like, done. Let's do it. I'm ready. And I called Coach Kell. Good with me. Come into Penn State. Let's do it. And then I leave on vacation. And somehow the news got out a little bit. I was like, don't tell anybody. Like, keep this between us. Like, don't say anything. And I don't know how it got out. Coach told somebody. I don't know. But anyways, I come back and they're like, a couple missed calls, couple texts, blah blah blah, what's up. So then I have to call every coach because I didn't want to just. Now people just do an announcement on Twitter and then people figure it out. I wanted to be like, these coaches invest a lot of time in me, so I'm gonna call, John Smith. I'm gonna call Tom Brands. I'm gonna have a conversation with these guys and let them know where I'm going before it's tweeted live, which was interesting.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. It was the right thing to do. It was definitely not fun, but it wasn't that bad. Yeah. I was just like, I only had one bad experience.
Right on.
Yeah.
We'll keep that one for off recording.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, you're just dominating, but you're doing these other tournaments. Did your dad, did your coaches, were you started to do anything like from a mental perspective to get ready to compete?
That's a great question. In high school, I'm trying to think. In high school, it was just all honestly intuition, off the cuff. Like, my dad, I think, was just a good natural leader in that. So the way he would structure his practices is we'd get our warm up in. He'd have everybody kind of do like a team, maybe some push-ups, some like ab type work, and then he would give everybody like a quote of the day. Do like a quote of the day, kind of some type of mental motivation or mental how to approach competition or practice or focus, whatever that was. It was different every day. And then, so it was something that was kind of talked about as in that sense, but I didn't do specific coaching to me until I got to college. And but I felt like I had a good base and understanding of just kind of the natural like mental game of how to compete. But there were still a lot of things that I think that were holding me back.
When you were in high school and you were getting ready to do the finals in the state tournament, what was going through your mind? 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade?
Yeah, so in high school, I think that the main thing that I would think about was obviously winning and losing was on my mind heavy, but I would think like just push that down, just don't think about it, just go out there and send it, get at it, like, go out there and freaking go for it. And that's kind of was like my coping mechanism was I'm just gonna go for it, like whatever, like let's go, let's do it, like I don't care, like kind of just like cowboy up, like let's go. And that's kind of was my only real mental kind of strategy for dealing with stress and pressure and competition while I was in high school, which it would work out sometimes, but not as consistently as I would have liked.
Yeah, we actually, I got asked a question about this, handling stress. We did a podcast about it, and I, for the first time in my life, thought about what I did going into stressful situations. And what I came up with was, like, everything in the beginning was all like, oh yeah, okay, you're gonna practice, you're gonna prepare, you're gonna rehearse, you're gonna do all these things. You're gonna think about how it's gonna go down. I had all those things, but there's one thing that I've been doing my whole life that I never really thought about, which is kind of very similar to what you just said, which is basically up until the execution, I'm super humble, like I'm gonna practice, prepare, plan, think through things,
Whatever.
like all that stuff that comes from humility. And then like when I put my night vision goggles on, and when I lock and load my weapon, I'm like I'm gonna kill everybody, like I can't be stopped, like we're gonna crush the enemy. So there's a level of cockiness that comes out.
Confidence.
Yeah, just like, okay, I'm ready to go. And even if I'm going to talk to a group of people, like, I don't sit back, backstage like, well, I hope I don't mess anything up. No, I think like, oh, I'm gonna go, these people are gonna get their world's rocked right now. Let's go. So I had this, just was doing archery up in Montana, and I was shooting with Leif, my buddy, and because we had done this podcast, I had this mindset. I was going up there and we're doing the 3D archery shoot, so there's freaking crazy targets, they're between trees and uphills, downhills. There was one of them that was a little white rabbit at 72 yards. Like, these are hard freaking shots to make. And for the first time ever, I went through the whole course with one arrow, right? Which is hard to do, 25 shots with one arrow. And these are crazy shots. But I was in late and I told him that. I was like, hey bro, when I walk up to that line, I'm just like, I'm gonna freaking smoke this thing. And that's what happens, you just because if you're thinking like, oh, I hope I miss that, I hope I don't miss that, I'm gonna hit that rock, I hope I hit that tree, you're guaranteed to hit that freaking tree. Just call timber before you shoot, you're gonna hit that tree. And so I think that's similar to what you're saying. And the interesting thing is that's how you wrestle. Like, when people watch you wrestle, it's easy to see that you're going, I'm just gonna freaking get after it, I'm gonna send it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I just always had that. That was naturally just me, my personality, and it got kind of, I guess, highlighted and brought even more to the front when I would compete. But at the same time, now I look back and there were a lot of mental things that I had added to my game, and that I feel like, and things that I was also just doing incorrectly, like just different focuses that now I'm like, I had to let those go, and I had to learn lessons that basically brought me to where I am now, right? Like, it's ever evolving. I'm sure in 10 years when I look back at where I am now, I'll be like, dang, that's what I was thinking when I was prepared. Because to me, that's the biggest part of it, right? Like, everybody's gonna train hard. Everybody's gonna have at what I'm doing. They're gonna have skills. They're gonna have certain things they're good at, and what's really gonna separate people is mentally how they're able to focus and be free and compete themselves, like, and be themselves, right? Like, that to me is what I really try to focus on now, because, like I said, you're a pro MMA fighter or a college wrestler, everybody's got reps, dude. Everybody's got reps. You got to be elite. Not only at that, you got to have a different part of your game that sets you apart.
Just before we get into college, when you're growing up, you're doing like strength and conditioning with the football team at Allen for those first 2 years. Are you naturally strong? Are you one of these people that's like, look, your dad played football in college, your mom played basketball in college, like, you have good genes. Are you abnormally strong?
So I had an interesting strength. I was always explosive and fast. Like, I could shoot very fast shots. I could run pretty quick. I could change directions fast. But I was never a strong guy. A guy that's gonna grab you and you're gonna be like, whoa, what the heck? But I was a guy, like, I could pick you up and put you down fast. But I had to work a lot from all the way from high school through college, really, and still to this day, my weaker points are like that brute strength, right? Like, that's not really, and I tailor my style around that, but I think you still have to have some of that. So that's what I work on. I work on the squat, the bench press, the freaking just like, not the explode through somebody, but just like the grind somebody down, and that's to me what doesn't come naturally. So I work on that a lot.
So you show up, you graduate state champion. You only got it 4 times. Three. Oh wait. Oh, that's right. That's your freshman. That's right. Dang, weak.
I know. I feel like at this point, how many years later is that? So 2010. So 13 years after, I'm a little okay with it. Like 1%. I'm 1% okay. Actually, no, that's not true.
So 3-time state champion, graduate, finished your senior year, you go to Penn State, yet you redshirt your first year, meaning you're there, but you're not participating. You're not competing.
Not competing on the official team. I'm competing in open tournaments and stuff, and training every day. And that was a very interesting time. It was a really interesting I think back about that time in my life a lot. I think I'm in a similar time right now with MMA and getting into MMA. So yeah, interesting stuff.
And you basically decided to do this because it gives you another year to train, learn, get stronger, get more mature, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
How old are you at this point? 19?
I was 18. Yeah, so I was 18. Basically gave me the red shirt. It made a lot of sense for reasons. I needed to develop and get better. I was very raw, naturally talented. I had some good fundamentals, but overall, most of my wrestling was wild gunslinging, like and I would come out on top most of the time. But there was a lot of risk, and I needed to develop a different side of my game. And so I was like, you could put me out there against anybody, even a guy way better than me, and I got a shot. But that really wasn't what I was looking to do. I wasn't interested in being a guy that has a chance to win. I was interested in being the guy that you have no chance to beat me. That was what. So the red shirt year made sense.
So you're working with Kale. What are we calling him? The greatest collegiate wrestler of all time?
Yeah, collegiate. Yeah, easily.
Just unbelievable and like a presence, right? And I've never met him, but like you can watch him and he just has a presence about him. Part of it's because he is the greatest, right? But there's another component there, the thing you can't really identify. What's it like with him for the first year? What's that situation feel like?
So the situation's so interesting because, like I said, he was my idol growing up. It was like the guy that I watched, and he was that guy I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a 4-time undefeated national champion because that's what he did. And that's something that, to me, for the first while, I'm just kind of watching him. I'm just like, wow, like, what's up with this guy? Like, he's quiet. He's very quiet. And so he does individual meetings with the guys at the beginning of the year, especially freshmen, to kind of get a read on him. And I'm trying to figure him out. And this is what he does. So I roll into his office. He's got like a big desk, and he sits back and he just goes like this. He's like kind of swiveling in his chair and just staring at me. And I'm like, we sat there for like 60 seconds. And nobody said anything, which is a long time. Like after actually doing
That's
it.
a super awkward.
Yeah. And so he's like leaning. And I'm like, so what's up, coach? Because I'm waiting for him to say something. And but then I don't really remember the rest of the meeting. I just remember that. But then I thought he was trying to figure me out. But yeah, and I think the first bit was just figuring him out and being around him, kind of understanding what he thinks about, what he focuses on, what he wants me to do. Like, what do you expect of me, coach? Obviously, you expect me to win, but how do I get there? And I think that first year was mostly learning through absorbing it, just being in that environment and just absorbing it and seeing not only him but the rest of the coaches, the rest of the team, how they do things, what they focus on, what their mentality is like. And I tried to really like be present and be around him and really like I would wrestle on him a ton and just like absorb everything that he was kind of putting out. But it was a big learning curve because, like I said, I was very raw and had a lot of good skills, had a lot of success, but had, in my mind, just as many kind of flaws in my game and in my mentality.
What's the culture? How would you describe the culture there? By the way, there's Penn State right now. They're the Kings, right? What's their record right now? Past 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think we won 10 out of the last 12 national titles, and it's just insane. So yeah.
What's driving that? What's the culture feel like?
Yeah. So it's interesting because everybody talks about how much we win, but we really never talk about winning. It's all about the principles that the program are built on. It's gratitude. It's knowing what you want. It's taking care of each other and focusing on effort. Like really at the end of the day, those are the main things. It's like effort, gratitude, know what you want. Kind of in a different order. It's know what you want. It's effort. It's gratitude in the correct order. So that's the things that I was learning, and I think that they just take things to a different level as far as attention to detail, and being good at and proficient at wrestling technically is definitely what is focused on most. I think that they always have a specific system and a way they do things on the mat that's very different. I think they're 20 years ahead of everybody else. But
In terms of what, technique or how they're drilling or
Yeah.
how they're
everything. I think they're just ahead. They're just ahead of the curve. And everybody tries to copy us with whatever we do. And it just seems like, as far as the types of techniques that they're teaching, the way that they're teaching them are very different. The mentality is very different behind what to focus on when you're going out to compete, and also just the different, I don't know if amenities are the right words, but the different things that they utilize to help us be the best and make things easier on us.
amenity.
Like hot and cold tubs, like saunas, stuff like that. Like our weight room, it's all right there. But I would say the biggest thing, like we have a full-time, I don't know if I would call her a sports psychologist, because she's not. She does more than that, but we've had a full-time, basically sports psych for, I don't know, before any team ever did that. Like Coach Kale was doing that when he was competing, and that was in early 2000s, and like we've had one since 2009, 2010. So that was just a standard. Like you met with Bonnie, our lady Bonnie.
What does she say?
Kind of like, what are you trying to do? What are you here for? What do you want? Like
Where did Kale find her?
So I think he was dealing with some challenges mentally, just being who he was and wanting to win an Olympic gold medal. And I think he met her right after college, but they used to just do like phone kind of consultations, and she would help him kind of get a grip on everything that he was trying to accomplish and manage that. And then when he came to the head coaching position at Penn State, he brought her on staff. So she's been on staff with us, like I said, before I even got there. But there was no schools doing that at all. Like that wasn't even a thing, and now it's kind of like the standard. But yeah, stuff like that. And then we have a great strength conditioning coach at Penn State, but we also utilize outside help for strength conditioning with the training lab. I don't know if you ever heard of training lab, but Sam Calavita runs it, and so he helps us. He's easily the number one strength conditioning nutrition coach in the world as far as combat sports go. So we've been utilizing him forever, and and I think the other cool thing is that our staff, Coach Kale, his brother Cody, Casey Cunningham, Jake Varner, like they've been with each other the entire time. Like they came to Penn State together. They're the same guys. So they've and if you look at their daily meetings, they have what they did a year ago today, what they did 3 years ago today, 5 years ago today, a decade ago today. They know exactly what it is. So they have so much data and information that they're just able to help us navigate a lot of, or I guess they help us not have to navigate a lot of stuff that we maybe would have had to otherwise.
One of the things you said was that team and those coaches focus on the right thing. What would you say they focus on that maybe other wrestlers or other teams or other people aren't focusing on?
There's a lot. I would say that the main thing is we want to get better at wrestling, right? Like, so what are you going to do if you want to get better at wrestling? You got to wrestle. So that's what we're doing most of the time. We're not, we're going to do our conditioning workouts, but